So I had originally planned on making a Fallout 4 run for this video, but then I was playing Oblivion Remastered, and I had the dumbest idea for a video that I just knew I had to make. Can you beat Oblivion by doing nothing? So what exactly does that mean? Well, in Oblivion there are two enchantment slash spell effects that make it to where you can damage enemies by not actually attacking them, but instead reflecting their attacks back onto them. These are reflect damage for reflecting melee damage, and then reflect spell for reflecting spells. So I wondered, can you actually beat the game with all the damage you deal coming from these two effects? And for the record, I know technically summons are also you not dealing damage directly, but for this run, I'm counting any damage dealt by a summon as damage dealt by you. I just really wanted to focus on the reflect damage and reflect spell effects. Plus, I may be planning a run revolving around summons sometime for the future, and I wanted to save summons for that run. But that's all for the rules for this run. If you like this kind of content, be sure to go down and like and subscribe. Every subscriber gets me one step closer to being able to do this as a full-time job. But now, without further ado, let's get on into the run. For my character, I create this monstrosity with blue hair and pronouns. And then a boomer tells me I'm a sleep paralysis demon.
Secret talk, secret talk.
Honestly, running through this game's tutorial without attacking anything really isn't that difficult. So skipping ahead to picking my star sign, I end up going with the tower sign because it has a greater power that you can activate once per day to reflect 5% of damage. Really, I just picked it because it went with the theme of the run. I didn't think I was going to get that much use out of the 5% reflection. But to fast forward a bit, it's no exaggeration to say that this choice saved this run. But we'll get to all that later. For now, I continue on. The Emperor gets to meet his ancestors, and I go on to create my class. Specialization is magic, favorite attributes, intelligence and endurance, and major skills of acrobatics, alchemy, athletics, illusion, mercantile, mysticism, and restoration. I made my way through the sewers and out into Cyrodiil, and my first task was to power level. The first item I wanted to get actually had a leveled enchantment on it, so I wanted to gain a few levels so that I could get a better enchantment. Since player levels are tied to skill levels in this game, and I wasn't gonna need any of the weapon skills anyway, my power leveling method of choice was maxing out my mercantile skill. I may or may not have duplicated some high value items depending on if you can keep a secret. And then I sold stuff to vendors in the Imperial City until my mercantile skill was at 100. This got me up to level 11 and also gave me enough money that I wouldn't have to worry about money for the rest of the run. To be fair though, after the setup's done, all I'll really need money for the rest of the run is potions. So I wouldn't really have to worry too much about money even without this massive influx of cash at the beginning. Now for the reason I needed to power level. I make my way to Deepscorn Hollow, one of the player homes that you can actually get for free. And after reading the diary of the previous owner, I can make my way to purchase all the furnishings for it. Once I have my new home fully furnished, I'm able to go into my new bedroom and get the Raiment of the Crimson Scar. This armor has a number of leveled enchantments, but the one we're most interested in for this run is the Reflect Damage. Since I'm level 11, the Reflect Damage effect is at 20%. Not the highest it can be, but also definitely not bad. Now that I can reflect melee damage, all I need is a way to reflect spells. With that in mind, my next stop is the Shrine of the Daedric Prince Periite. Apparently his followers had been trying to summon him, and they ended up getting their souls stuck in Oblivion, and he wants me to go get them back. Literally all you have to do for this quest is be transported into this small Oblivion Gate area, walk up to all the souls, talk to them, and then make your way back out. For running this errand for him, Periite gives us the shield Spellbreaker, which would be a great shield even in a normal playthrough, but for this one is practically essential. Spellbreaker comes with a 30% reflect spell enchantment, which is in effect even if you can't see the shield on your character model because you're not holding a weapon. As of right now, this is our only way to reflect spells, and there are a lot of spellcasters in Oblivion, so this is absolutely going to come in handy. At this point, I was tired of doing setups, so I decided to just move on with the main quest. I took the amulet to Joffrey, and then made my way on to Kvatch. But not before stopping by Bruma for some reason. Looking back at the footage, I genuinely have no idea what I was trying to do here. I ended up getting some spells from the Mages Guild, so maybe that's why I was in Bruma, but I really have no idea. Anyway, on to closing the Oblivion Gate. I was just running through the place because, like I said, I couldn't fight back anyway, and I didn't want to, take the time to have enemies wail away on me until they died. And this decision came back to bite me. Now, in most Oblivion Gates, you don't need any keys, and even if there's a locked door that you have to go through, you can just pick the lock. But what I forgot about this first gate in Kvatch is that it is the one exception. There is a single locked door that you have to go through that requires a key. And that key can only be gotten from looting the body of the Sigil Keeper. Now normally that's no problem, it's a one-on-one fight, you come out on top, you grab the key, and you keep going. But now remember that I've been running through this gate without stopping to take down any enemies, some of which can follow you through multiple loading zones. So now this usually simple one-on-one fight became a 3-on-1 fight where I can't attack. I eventually realized that because my speed was so high, I could actually outrun all of the Dremora that were in the room with me. So I just kind of started running around the room and healing until I could take a couple of hits from one of them, and then repeated the process. The strategy got results, but it definitely wasn't quick. This normally simple fight ended up taking me 11 minutes. Once that was over, I quickly closed the gate, grabbed Martin, and got right out of Kvatch. Once we made it back to Wayne and Priory, the cultists attacking the place were nice enough to pause long enough so this guy could tell us what was going on. And then I just kind of stood around while Martin and Joffrey were taking out the Mythic Dawn before we made our way to Cloud Ruler Temple. And at this point, I wanted to get a little bit more powerful, so I decided to run an errand for another Daedric Prince. Specifically, I went to the shrine of Namira, who sent me to turn off the lights in one of the ruins where their followers had set up shop. For doing this, I'm given the Ring of Namira, which just has a completely different effect in this game than it does in Skyrim, adding another 12 points to my reflect damage and another 10 points to my reflect spell. And at this point, since I'm so close to it, I just decided I would go and open up my usual go-to player home, which is Frostcrag Spire. And I figured while I was there, I might as well try to enchant some gear. And this is where we get into how picking the tower star sign earlier literally saved this run. Because while the reflect damage that I had been actually doing pretty good up to this point in the run, I knew there was coming a point pretty soon probably where that was going to fall off and I would need to get that number higher. Now my plan going into this run was to enchant some armor with some reflect enchantments. But I really should have looked into it before I started the run. Like I said, I just kind of started this run on a whim, didn't really look into anything. Because you actually can't enchant armor with reflect damage or reflect spell. But this is where picking the tower earlier comes into play. You see, because I picked the tower star sign, I can actually make a reflect damage spell. I ended up looking it up, and as far as I can tell, this is the only way you can get reflect damage on your list of craftable spells. So me picking that star sign, just because it went with the theme of the run, actually saved this run. So I spent the next few hours grinding on my mysticism skill and learning Oblivion's spellmaking mechanics, until I was able to make a reflect damage spell that I was somewhat happy with. I made my way to the Imperial City to meet up with Boris, and while he was taking down the Mythic Dawn agent in the basement of the tavern, something dawned on me. Anytime I play through Oblivion, one of the things I like to do is make sure I save Boris if I can. But I realized since I can't attack, and therefore can't draw an enemy's aggro onto myself, there's no way I can save Boris when we meet with a sponsor. So I took some time to grind out some more levels so that I could hopefully come up with some sort of solution to save Boris. While I was doing this, I stopped by one of the Mages Guild halls and saw the most impressive display of magic I've seen in this game. And glitches aside, I ended up deciding that my best bet to save Boris was to try to skip meeting the sponsor. With that in mind, I went straight to the tomb of Prince Camaril and thought I was actually going to get somewhere when the tomb lit up and the activate thing actually popped up for me. But when I clicked A, nothing happened. Well, that's disappointing, but I've played this game before many times, and I know where the Mythic Dawn base is, so what if I just go there? When I got to the Mythic Dawn's base, I had some hope again, because the doorkeeper was there, and he said the line he says when you come here later on in the main story. But I couldn't respond because my character didn't know the response to what he said. I tried pickpocketing him for the key, wasn't anywhere on his person. I was even ready to fail the run by punching him and drawing his aggro so that I could loot the key off of him, but that didn't work either. It seems like I have to actually wait to get in until I hit that part in the story. That means as hard as I tried, I will not be able to save Boris in this run. So I go back to the Imperial City, buy a book, tell this guy that the Mythic Dawn are the people who killed the Emperor, and follow Boris down into the sewers. I decided to grant Boris his final wish of meeting with a sponsor. Got this honestly really good ring off of one of Mankar Cameron's kids, and then got chased through someone's basement by a goblin. The owner of this house is going to be very confused when they get home. I deliver the books to Tarmina, and the game will finally let me continue on with the main quest. But before I did so, I decided to do some more level grinding and some more side questing. The level grinding was so that I could get my alchemy skill up, because I wanted to make some reflection potions. And the side questing was for some more Daedric artifacts, because I didn't want to give Martin one of my Daedric artifacts I already had, and I knew that would be the next thing I would need to get after going to the Mythic Dawn base. The first Daedric quest I did was for an artifact that I actually wanted to use, that being the skeleton key. The quest for Nocturnal to actually get it is honestly really simple, especially when you have such a high reflect damage. All you have to do is just eavesdrop on these people as they talk about where they hid the Eye of Nocturnal, and then go through a really short cave filled with trolls and grab it. Once you return to the shrine with the Eye of Nocturnal, you're given the skeleton key, which is an unbreakable lockpick. Now this, combined with my now maxed out security skill, means all I have to do to get into any locked chest or door, no matter how difficult, is just push X a couple of times on my controller. I actually put the skeleton key to use as I went to get my next and last Daedric artifact that I was going to get for this run, the Wabbajack. As a little aside here, I'm having a lot of fun getting these Daedric artifacts. Honestly, a Daedric artifact only run might be in the future for this channel. But anyway, the Wabbajack is the Daedric artifact that I'm going to be giving to Martin, because since I can't attack anything in this run, I can't actually use it. I went over this quest in detail in my Oblivion as a monk video, but it is by far the easiest Daedric quest. All you have to do is get a piece of cheese from this locked container. That's where the skeleton key comes in, by the way. Then you place that cheese into the communal cooking pot, which brings rats into town, causing the town to put out rat poison. You then use that rat poison to poison their livestock, and then go into the center of town where Sheogorath drops dogs from the sky. Then you just return to Sheogorath's shrine, and he gives you the Wabbajack. Alright, enough distractions, back to the main quest. Making my way to the Mythic Dawn's hideout, I literally just run in there, grab the Mysterium Xarxes, and run out. It is genuinely wild to me in doing this run how much of this game you can just run through if you're not attacking anything. Once I got back to Cloud Ruler Temple, they sent me out to deal with the spies. That was easy as ever. It's just a matter of fighting two of the same style of Mythic Dawn agents you've been fighting for the entire story at this point, and then going into their basement and grabbing a note. Next, Martin wants me to get him a Daedric artifact, but I've already done so I just hand him the Wabbajack, and it's off to close the gate near Bruma. This gate's no more difficult than the rest, but it is a little bit more tedious, because I can't just run through straight to the end. I have to actually stick with Bird, and he has to actually be able to follow me to the end. But we eventually make it through and close the gate. Martin then asked me to go get the armor of his great grandmother's cousin's great grandfather, so that he can scrape some of the dried blood off of it or something. But before I do that, I decided to do something I've never done in this game before, and I went and got all of the aid for Bruma. The Bruma militia usually has no trouble protecting Martin while the gates are opening, But that's assuming that you're also fighting the Daedra as they pour out, which is something that I can't do in this run. Plus, I'm level 25, which is a little bit higher than most people end up being. So at this point, I'm fighting very late game Daedra like Spider Daedra, Daedroths, Zavalis, stuff like that. The Bruma Militia is usually fine to take out some Scamps and probably some Clan Fears, but I don't really know how well they do against late game Daedra. That said, getting all the aid for Bruma really wasn't that difficult or even really that time consuming in this run. I maxed out my speed a while ago, and my acrobatics skill is hovering somewhere in the low to mid 50s, so I can kind of just cheese the gates and run pretty quickly straight to the Sigil Stone to close them. Similarly, when I get to Sancrator, I can just run past the Wraiths and just let the undead blades wail on me until they go down. Then making my way to Miscarcand, honestly the hardest part of this dungeon is just finding my way through. Something I actually didn't know going into this run is that when you reflect damage, you actually don't take the damage you reflect. As a result, between the armor I'm wearing, the spells I'm casting, all of that, my reflect damage is sitting at any given time in like the mid 80s. So I'm only taking like at most 15% of the damage I should be taking. And then my armor rating has on top of that. So I'm basically taking no damage as I run through these dungeons. But anyway, I make my way through Miscarcan, grab the Great Welkin Stone, run back out, and it's time to close the Great Gate. With all of the help I got for Bruma, I was able to just sit back and watch the fight unfold while I waited for the Great Gate to open, and as soon as it opened, I ran right on in, cheesed my way through the gate like I did all the others, and grabbed the Great Sigil Stone. Once I'm out, I meet up with Martin back at Cloud Ruler Temple where he opens a portal to Paradise, and I head on through to the endgame. I didn't really have much trouble in Paradise. I just kinda stood there while all the enemies took turns hitting themselves. This includes Cathatet, by the way. One of these days I'll do the little quest to get past him, but today is not that day. I then make my way to Menkar Cameron's throne room and have the single longest fight that I've ever had in any of my playthroughs of this game. I timed it while I was looking back at the footage, and no joke, it took me 23 minutes. For a little bit of context here, in my monk run, it took me maybe a minute and a half to take him out. See, the problem was, while I was never really in any danger, I also couldn't really do anything to him. He didn't really attack me that much, and when he did, he was using his staff, which has a shock spell. But I don't know if the reflect spell doesn't work with staves, or if his spell absorption was just too high, because it never seemed to actually reflect back onto him. I had a little bit of hope that I could actually finish this fight when his staff ran out of charge, and he started hitting me with his fists, because at that point I was doing significantly more damage to him because of my high reflect damage as opposed to reflect spell. But I'm just going to cut to the chase and let y'all know this is where I failed the run. See, each time he got low enough on health, he just used a healing spell. And now normally that's not a huge deal because you can just kind of keep attacking to negate the healing. But in this run, I can't attack him. So what'll happen is he'll attack me until he gets down to about a third of his health, heal up, attack me again, get back down to about a third of his health, and then the cycle just repeats itself. I feel like it might be possible to stop this with a silence spell, but I didn't have one when I got here. And when I look back, my most recent save before Paradise was actually right before I went into Miscarcand, and I just really didn't want to replay the last 2 hours. So I just activated my Berserker Rage and failed the run as I started throwing hands. I made sure to paralyze myself on Menkar Cameron's throne, as is YouTuber tradition, and made my way back to the real world. Now, even though I just failed the run, I still made my way through to the ending, because why not? All you gotta do for the ending is to go to the Imperial City Palace, then go to the temple where Bethesda remembers that Martin is voiced by Sean Bean, ending the run and not proving that you can beat Oblivion by doing nothing. Like I said earlier, I do think this is actually possible. Like, if he went into that Menkar Cameron fight with a good enough silence spell to keep him from healing, I think you could actually get him to attack you enough to where he will take himself out. But I really didn't want to play through the last 2 hours, including that 23-minute Mankar Cameron fight all over again. Plus, I was running up on the admittedly self-inflicted deadline that I had set for getting the recording done for this challenge. If I had just been doing this run just for myself casually, I probably might have just come back to it later and done the silence strategy. But hey, that's sometimes just the nature of doing these runs for YouTube. You can't always do everything you want to do in a run and get the run out on time. But I did have a lot of dumb fun with this run. I definitely recommend trying it out for yourself. And hey, if you do try it out and you try out that silence strategy against Mankar Cameron, let me know in the comments down below if that actually works. I'm actually very curious to find out if it does. As for the next video, yes, I am fully aware what month it is. Yes, it completely snuck up on me, so I did not have the time to make this video a Pride Month special video. But don't worry, the next video I have scheduled is still in June, so it's going to be a Pride Month special video, and it's actually going to be in Pokemon X. I do have some ideas for some Pride Month videos in various Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, but the problem is they're just going to take too long to record, so I came up with this idea for a Pride Month video in Pokemon X. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. It involves so many puns. And if you're watching the video this far in, you've probably watched some of my other videos, and you know I love me a good pun. I even gave my character in this run a pun name, Mirror, because of all the reflecting. I didn't mention it at the beginning of the video because I wanted to make the boomer joke about Emperor Uriel. Hopefully that joke lands the way I wanted to, by the way, and I don't have a bunch of people down in the comments telling me how, even though I'm a trans woman, I'm somehow transphobic for talking about blue hair and pronouns. But at this point, I'm rambling. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, bye!